Today we have on Mr. Ben Tickle. He is a teacher and coach at Carroll County High School. Sir, how are you?
Doing well, thank you very much. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Absolutely. Well, I think I can speak for both me and Ethan. It's an honor to speak with you today. We're going to kind of mix it up here. Ethan has our first question today, and it's something we're just trying to test out.
Yeah. What's your earliest memory?
It's interesting that you should ask that because I've been thinking a lot about it lately. When I was 4 years old, I had an older brother who was 14, and he passed away from a kidney disease. And my earliest memory is of him. His name was David, lying on the couch. He was sick at the time. Of course, I didn't really understand what was going on, just that he didn't feel good. And he had asked me to go to the kitchen to get him something to eat. A few weeks later, our family had to make a trip to Duke Medical Center, and he did not return. So that was not only my earliest memory, but my first experience with death, and that's in many ways kind of molded me. So yeah, that would be my earliest memory.
Is there any particular reason why you've been thinking about that?
I realize that some people will just think I'm flat out crazy, but about 2 months after that, my parents decided to put me in his old bedroom in our house that we rented at the time. And because before that I was doubled up with another brother. And when they moved me in there, not long after that, I just had an experience where I felt like he was with me in the room. And I even remember specifically going downstairs and sharing that experience with my mother. Of course, she was overwhelmed with emotion. And since then, I've always just had this feeling that my older brother was with me in spirit. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But you know, at the risk of sounding crazy, that was to me a real experience. So.
You mentioned renting a house. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Pulaski, Virginia, the town of, and it was rocky. So with the experience with my older brother, we were, and I should say I understood this better later on as I grew up, but my parents were overwhelmed with medical bills, and so we didn't have a lot. At the same time, we were blessed to always have food on the table, a place to stay, even though it wasn't our own. So I count those all as blessings now.
We know from experience and from being at the high school around you that you lead the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Mm-hmm. What was your faith experience at this time? Were you in church? So where'd you go?
No. I was not. We were not. It was that whole experience created a lot of turmoil for my parents, and I think their faith suffered because of it. If you would have asked them, they would have said that they were Christian, but we never attended church. We never even prayed together. It was just rocky. So I actually, if you ask me, when did you actually become a Christian? It was at the age of 33, so years later, which is kind of an anomaly because statistics would show that if most people do not encounter Christ at an early age, it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So I think somewhere along the way there was a foundation, and again, I've always felt as though I have a somewhat of a guardian angel, if you want to use that expression, with me. But no, my childhood was void of any Christian experience.
Did you graduate from Pulaski County High School?
I did. I graduated in 1988. I don't know how far you want me to go beyond that. If you wanted me to just take off from there.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yes, I was actually born in Marion, Virginia, but at the age of 3, we moved to Pulaski County, and that's where I was living when that earliest memory happened. And I went all the way through Pulaski County schools. I played football. I wrestled. And if you would have asked me during high school what your what's your goal? My goal would have been to stay eligible to play sports, and that was pretty much it. I had no aspiration of college or anything beyond that, and but the Lord had other plans, so I went to New River Community College after I graduated because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And that's where I met a wonderful lady who's now my wife, and her name is Amy. And she basically, her family showed me what it was like to grow up in a Christian home, to be in a Christian home. And from that point on, I started taking my studies seriously, and I went on to Radford University, ended up with a bachelor's degree in geography and actually a second bachelor's degree in psychology. And I wanted to be an archaeologist. I was a huge Indiana Jones fan. So that's the geography side of that. But then I got into psychology, and I started thinking about teaching. And I ended up with a master's degree in special education, and actually went on to, years later, I went to work at Virginia Tech, and I was able to finish my PhD in special education. So 30 years later, or next year, will be 30 years in education, and
exciting.
It's been wonderful.
Congratulations.
But if you would have asked me at age 17, 18, it would have looked nothing like that. It would have probably been working in a factory in Pulaski, just trying to make ends meet. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just had no vision of what life was going to be. Yeah.
You mentioned staying eligible for sports. Did you consider yourself athletic in school?
No. I had enough self-awareness to know that I was not very athletic, just that I loved sports.
Yeah.
People have asked me, even students, players here, were you a really good football player, Coach Tickle? No. I loved football. And to this day, that's still my favorite sport if I had to choose one. But I was mediocre at best. I started some my senior year. That was about the extent of it. I had no chance at playing any kind of college ball. But
you loved it.
When I got into teaching, there's kind of a story there, because I know a lot of people actually get into teaching so they can coach. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was the opposite. I got into teaching because I wanted to help young people, and coaching was just kind of a natural avenue to do that. But once I got into coaching, I rediscovered my love for sports, so it just all kind of worked together.
Yeah. What did your academics look like in school?
In high school, I was a CB student.
Okay.
And that's why I will still meet people to this day. Not that I really talk about my education a lot, because I'm very aware that that the Lord put me in that situation to extend my education as an adult. And there's a lot of people that could do it given the same situation. So I'm very aware of that. But at the same time, I'll meet people that I graduated high school with, and they are like, "You do what? You're a teacher?" And then I can say, "Yeah, I teach online for Liberty University. I'm a professor too."
Wow.
Well, how did that happen? Is because you weren't a really good student in high school. And I just have to agree. You are correct. I wasted a few years, and thank the good Lord I was able to get back on track.
As you probably know firsthand, teachers can have a profound impact on people's lives. Was there any teachers that impacted your life in high school?
There was. Two in particular that I can think of. The first one was my 11th grade English teacher. Her name was Miss Brenda Waller. And I guess up until that point in time, all of my teachers were willing to accept my mediocre work. He doesn't have any behavior problems. He sits in class, he does what he needs to do, and he gets by, and they were okay with that. And after about 2 weeks in Miss Waller's class, she stopped me at the door one morning, and she said this statement, and I'll never forget it. She said, "I refuse to accept anything but your best effort." And it kind of took me off guard, because I was like, well, why this morning? Why did she say that to me? She kept repeating that to me, like a week at a time. And so finally I asked her, and she just said, I just see a lot of potential in you. and I refuse to accept anything less than your best effort. I'm not going to be satisfied with mediocrity. And so she started calling my father and asking him to bring me in before school for extra work, which I didn't want to do. But he, thank the good Lord, I had a father that said, no, you're going. And so I would go in 30 minutes early every day, and she would work with me. And I haven't seen her in a while, but I did get to see her long enough to share with her that I now co-teach in English 10. Mm-hmm. So, and some in English 11 in the past. So she was excited to hear that.
Yes. What did that work look like?
What does my work look like?
I mean,
your work with her.
With her in the mornings.
Oh,
but we can cover that too.
No, it was very one-on-one. It was, and I guess it's just the first time that a teacher had shown individual attention to me. It's like, why? I just didn't get it. And the only thing she would ever say was, I see potential in you. And she would sit down with me and work with me one-on-one. Before then, I really had no idea about composing complete sentences, anything beyond a simple sentence anyway. A compound sentence, no way. I tried not to use coordinating conjunctions or anything of the like. So she just sat down and walked me through it and started to show me what it looks like to be a good writer, a good reader. And it was really the foundation for what I was able to accomplish in college.
You mentioned that teaching method. Have you tried to model any of your own teaching methods after that?
Very much so. Very much so. What stood out to me about Miss Waller was that she was willing to give of herself to establish an individual relationship, a healthy relationship with students. Looking back on it, it's not like she was bribing me or anything of that nature. It was more of, it was a motivation without giving me what I wanted. Yeah. She only provided what I needed, and her expectations were so high that it was like I just felt intrinsically that I couldn't let her down. So for me, one of the things that I try to do with all of my students is to start by building a healthy relationship. I'm not going to be your buddy. I'm not going to be your pal, but I do want you to know that I care because, as the saying goes, they're not going to care how much I know until they know how much I care. I do believe that.
So you talked about high school. Then you went to community college at New River?
I did.
Did you work at that time?
I did. I worked almost a full-time job to get through New River. I paid for all that on my own, almost all of it. And the reason why is because my father was a very loving man. By this time, he and my mom had divorced years earlier. I spent more time with him, and he was very supportive. He wanted me to do the things that he was never able to do. And so he just simply told me, he said, hey, if you will go to New River and prove to me that you can be successful in college, and you transfer to a 4-year college, I will help you as much as I can to pay for that so you don't have to take out any loans. Mm-hmm. And he did. I was able to finish my bachelor's without ever having to take out a loan. But between the two of us, we were able to cover all the costs and get through it. And I really think that was a huge, that had a huge impact on me. The fact that I was paying for my education, it made me value it that much more.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That work-life balance, was that tough for you? Do you feel like it had any effect on you today?
It was tough. I'll be honest, one of the reasons I'm such an advocate for high school athletics is because that helped prepare me for that. Mm-hmm. The balance between school and what I considered work at the time, my sports. Mm-hmm. Even though I wasn't a great athlete, you still had to balance that time and make sure you were able to finish both. Work comes before play. And so I was able to carry that over. Even though I had my struggles, I went through times where it was easier or more difficult than others, but it did help me balance that. And then when I met my future wife, that's when I really started to realize that I'm one of these days I'm going to have a family to support.
Yeah.
And just seeing what the Lord really wants us to do in this life, and that is care for others. And so I just started to have those moments where I would say, how can you care for others when you can't even care for yourself? So it really motivated me to do better when I met her and kind of saw what my future was going to be. And there were choices that I had to make. You know, it could be a day-to-day struggle, or we could really make a little bit more of a comfortable life for ourselves and be able to help other people.
How did you meet your wife?
At New River Community College, actually. So we went to the same high school. We were 2 years apart. I was in my second year at New River. She was just starting, and one of my good friends introduced me to her. So we never knew each other while we were in high school. At that time, Pulaski County High School was over 2,000 students.
Wow. It
was a large high school. Not so anymore. But at that time, you could do that. You could go through 4 years and not know somebody. So it was strange the way that happened. But after about a month, we really knew that we were going to get married. It was that immediate. And we actually, we were married a year later. I had transferred and started Radford University. She was still going to New River.
So what is that like, being married and being in college?
You don't always see that nowadays. Some
you
people
don't.
wait.
You don't. And so my view on that is it helped me tremendously. I was more focused. I had the end goal in mind. At that point in time, by the time we were married, there was not a lot of room left for me to party or go out with the guys or anything like that. I knew what I needed to do to be successful for the future and make a life for me and my family. So it helped me to focus in and get, for the first time in my life, I was making all A's. And I know that would not have been the case if I had not met her and if we didn't continue that relationship. So I hear people say, well, we're going to wait until we get out of college. And I just say, I appreciate that, but if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And you're going to make things work. Yeah.
You said that when you met her, she was just now starting at New River. Did you live separately as you were married when you went to Radford and she was at New River?
No, once we got married, we did find our own place. It was just a tiny, tiny apartment in Dublin. It was right next to the UPS delivery service. There was so much noise in the mornings that you couldn't even sleep. It was. We think back about that often. We lived there until I finished my first degree and was able to get a teaching job.
Did she go to college while you were still?
She finished at New River, and she knew that at that point in time I was hoping to move on and possibly work on a master's degree. So even though I say to this day she is much more intelligent than I ever was, she wanted to allow me to do what I wanted to do. So she started working so that I could start teaching and continue and work towards a master's degree.
You don't really see that a lot nowadays, but in the past you did see people getting together and getting married at a very young age. It seems like you did the same thing. You think that helped strengthen your marriage?
I do. Again, I just feel like when it's right, it's right. And I hate to see, I do a lot of biblical study, and I look back at before Christ or even first century when people were getting married at the age of 13, 14. And those marriages worked. And I know there's a lot of situational dynamics involved in those, a lot of family arrangements and such. But it worked. And I just believe it's because when it's right, it's right. And when you make up your mind that this is what the Lord meant for you to do, you're not going to let anything else get in the way. And I think we've seen that happen in our lives. Yeah.
So you mentioned her working and you going to school to pursue a master's degree. Mm-hmm. Did you do that right after you graduated from Radford?
No. So right after I graduated from Radford, we were married. We moved out to the eastern shore of Virginia. little island called Chincoteague Island where they do the pony runs. If anybody remembers that, if you remember the story of Black Beauty, it was kind of from the pony runs that they have out there. And that was my first teaching job. It was Accomack County Schools. It was still in Virginia, but on the peninsula, out in the bay. And we were there for 3 years. And at that point in time, it was hard to find a teaching job. Yeah. That was 1993. I was a social studies teacher, and it was difficult. Now that there's such a shortage in certified teachers, it's a little bit easier, but that was the only job I could find at the time. And I had a friend out there. It was 8 hours away, an 8-hour drive. We said, we're going to move out here for 3 years. And that's exactly what we did. After 3 years, we moved back home to Pulaski County, and I took a job with Pulaski County Schools. And that's when I had really, at that point, fallen in love with working with students with disabilities. And so I decided to go back to school and achieve a master's degree in special education.
How long did that process take? What was your coursework like?
It took a solid 2 years because I was still working full time. Actually, it was about 2.5 years because I graduated in the summer. We did not have any kids at that time. My daughter was my oldest child was born right at the end of my master's degree, and it was a tough time. It was we didn't have a lot, but we just kept the end in mind. We knew it was a means to an end, so we worked through it. And I was teaching at Pulaski County High School while I finished my master's degree. I was also coaching football and wrestling. And, I look back now and it's like, wow, how did that ever work? Because at this point in my life, 10 p.m., I'm done. Yeah. I've got to go to bed. Back then, I could stay up till 1, 2 in the morning, work on a thesis, go to bed for 4 hours, and go to work the next day. It was okay, but not anymore. Can't do that. So I look back and it's like, how did I ever do it? I don't know.
So you had coursework, and then you had a thesis at the end of your studies where you had to...
We did, yeah. For my master's, it was a thesis at the end where you had to... There was a comp exam where you had to go into a panel and interview and answer questions, but then we also had to come up with a thesis and defend that thesis as a written examination.
At that point, did you ever see yourself pursuing a doctorate?
No.
Or did you think you were done with school?
I thought I was done with school. Went back to teaching. It elevated my pay a little bit. They gave me a little bit more responsibility at the high school. And then 2002, I had a friend that worked for Radford University for an organization called TTAC, the Training and Technical Assistance Center. And she said, hey, we really like the work that you're doing with students with disabilities in Pulaski. Would you consider coming to work with us? And after some prayer and talking about it with my wife, I decided, well, yes, this is interesting. I want to give it a try. And not even a year after that, they transferred my position to Virginia Tech. So I worked with TTAC at Virginia Tech for 9 years. And what I did was I went out into different local school divisions and helped them with their services for students with disabilities. And while I was at Virginia Tech, I was just in this wonderful situation where Tech would pay for 12 credit hours a year toward my PhD. And so over the course of about 5 years, I finished in 2008, I was able to complete my PhD in special education. And that was definitely the end of educating being. That's
pretty exciting.
Process.
Can you talk about what it's like to receive your PhD? That process is like, because we see some people go through it, but we never really hear kind of how it operates.
PhD is just it's an echelon above, but PhD you have to create your own original dissertation, right?
Right, you do. And so the way I describe it is this: your bachelor's degree is teaching you how to read and spit back information. Your master's degree teaches you how to write. Your PhD teaches you how to conduct research. So the coursework for the PhD, honestly, was not much more difficult than the master's degree. The most difficult part is the dissertation process. And so to give everybody an idea, I completed the coursework in about 2 years. It took me a solid 2 years to write and then defend my dissertation, which was basically on the teacher shortage in special education. And it was the exact thesis, and this was 2008, so it was something to the effect of administrative support for teachers of students with disabilities, and how that had the greatest effect or greatest impact on whether students or whether teachers would stay in the profession more than 5 years. So after about 6 to 8 months of conducting research and gathering research and data, then the writing process begins, and it's a constant submission, revision, submission, revision, submission, revision. It was a while, and depending on your committee and how much feedback they give you, that determines how long the process takes. So it's really a test in longevity. It's I had several really great mentors. I had one, my chair for my dissertation committee at Virginia Tech. Her name was Dr. Madao Chang, and now she's at the University of South Florida. And she was just a real support getting me through that. And she was an encourager. She was a believer in the Christian faith like I was, and so it was, which is difficult to find on a college campus and university. So it was just like the Lord put us together, and she really helped me through that process and helped me believe in myself. And because it's tough, it would be easy for people to give up on that process because it's just, you feel like you're taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But it's all a test. It's that they want to see if you can withstand the pressure and continue the process.
A lot of people, when they're going through these PhD programs, they consider mastering out. Did you ever consider that?
No.
You were dedicated.
And again, I need to say the only reason I stuck with it is because I had that one professor that believed in me, and she shared my faith, and it was very powerful for me. I got to a point where finishing all but dissertation was not an option for me. I was going to complete the dissertation, and praise the good Lord, I did. And so that's been huge because that allowed me at that point, even though I wanted to stay in public education, I started teaching for Liberty University online, and I still do to this day.
Do you often look back at your dissertation, or do you just kind of leave it in the past? Because that's something, I know a few people who, they don't have their doctorates or PhDs, but they had to write a thesis for their master. And I'll ask them, do you ever look back on it? And they say, oh no, I don't look at that thing.
Rarely. Sometimes I will reference it when I'm working with different students and they are working on a similar topic or something similar to my dissertation. I'll reference it sometimes and talk about some of the research that I found. What I do use it for is the process, because from time to time I will sit on the dissertation committees for students through Liberty University Online, and that's been a huge help, so that I can aid them through the process of completing their own.
One of our friends, Ronnie Collins, he received his doctorate through Liberty, not, I think, 2 or 3, I think it was last year.
Yeah, it was
last year.
Yeah.
So he kind of talked about that process too. Seems to be pretty difficult, but did you have children? I'm assuming you had children at this time.
So when I finished my master's, my oldest daughter was born. Her name's Lauren. She's 24, getting ready to be 24 now. And about 2 years after I started my PhD, my son was born. He is getting ready to turn 19. So in 2008, I will never forget being on the floor of Castle Coliseum to receive my PhD, and I looked up and there was my wife and my 2 kids. That was a very proud moment for me. And Dr. Chang, my dissertation chair, was there to actually present me with my my doctorate, and for that I was very thankful. It was really a blessing looking back. I mean, again, if you asked me at the age of 18 if I'm going to have a PhD one day, I would have laughed at you. It would, I mean, seriously, it just didn't cross my mind. So the Lord had another plan. Yeah.
I've noticed that you don't refer to yourself as Dr. Tickle. Is that intentional?
It is not here. I'm not Dr. Tickle here. For if my Liberty students want to refer to me as Dr. Tickle, that's fine. But I just, I don't, and I'm not trying to sound, I don't know how I want to say this, but I don't want to put myself on a pedestal. I'm no different than anybody else. I know a lot of people that could complete that PhD just like I did if they were put in the same situation. So I just, although I appreciate it, I'm thankful to the good Lord for the opportunity to do that, and it's made a difference in my life. Here at Carroll County High School, I'm Tickle, and I enjoy that more than anything. You know, when you go down the hallway and you hear, "Hey, Tickle," I enjoy that. I don't need to hear Dr. Tickle.
You mentioned your wife, and you mentioned that you had a faith journey at 33. Did your wife and kids join you in this journey?
Yes. So my wife was a Christian from a young age. And as I said earlier, her family was really my first experience with what it was like to be part of a Christian family and community. So at the age of 20, when I first met her, I started attending church with them, and actually was baptized there at her church, and at the age of 20. But it wasn't until about 12, 13 years later that I really decided that I wanted to spend my life following the Lord Jesus and doing what I could to be more Christ-like each and every day. And I praise the good Lord that both of my children are also baptized believers. And even though they're in that young adult stage, of course, my daughter's almost 24. She's been married since she was 18. So she kind of followed in our footsteps, getting married at a young age. And she and her husband are both believers, and they're doing good things. They live down in Pensacola, Florida. My son is going to college, but still lives at home with us. And even with the struggles that the young adult years bring, they are still faithful. And I praise the Lord for that all the time, because I feel like it's all His work. Yes.
So you mentioned you were at Pulaski County High School for a few years. You got your master's degree and eventually your PhD. When did you come to Carroll County?
So, good story there.
Okay.
When I finished my PhD, it was 2008. I continued working at at Virginia Tech for a few years because I wanted to give back to them, because the people there were so great. They had allowed me to work through my PhD while I was working there, and it was just a wonderful group. But in 2013, the director of special education in Pulaski County resigned, and I had several people contact me and say, "Hey, you ought to consider coming back and doing this." And long story short, I did. December of 2013, I was hired on as the director of special education in Pulaski County Schools, and I was there for 4 years. The superintendent at that time was Dr. Thomas Brewster, wonderful guy from Tazewell, Virginia, good friend of mine, and he was wonderful to work for. However, beginning of 2018, they hired a new superintendent, and the new superintendent had different plans for the administration, and basically told me at that time that I was not part of that plan. And there were several factors there. He actually told me that that he didn't feel like I was good administrative material. He said I was too nice to be an administrator. And it's funny how the Lord works. So for a little while, I was kind of taken back by that. And but then the Lord really helped me to realize that, I don't feel like it's possible to be too kind. I don't think that's possible. But at the same time, if that was the criteria for being in that work environment, to not be kind, then it wasn't for me. So he put me back in the classroom to finish that year, and it turned out to be just this huge blessing in disguise. I loved it. I loved being back in the classroom, working with kids again directly. But I did make up my mind. I said, I don't feel comfortable staying in Pulaski County. They would keep calling me and asking me for advice on how to do things. And I was like, I'm not the director. I don't want to do that. I want to step on somebody else's toes. So at the end of the school year, and this is 2000, that would be the 2017 school year. I had a friend over here in Carroll County that said, hey, we have a teaching position open. And I said, this is perfect. And a good story, before I went to teach in Pulaski County back in 1997, I was actually offered a job over here working at the high school, and I turned it down because Pulaski County was my home school. I wanted to work there, and I had already been coaching some with them. But in the back of my mind, I always had this little bit of regret. So 2008, fall of 2017, no, I'm saying that wrong. It was the fall of 2018. I came to work here at Carroll County High School as a teacher, and I have absolutely loved it. I mean, I love the county. I love the people. I love the students. It's been wonderful. I don't know, maybe that was because I didn't really appreciate or have the greatest experience as an administrator, but regardless of why, I do know that I just love it, and it's been a real blessing. So I get to teach here with all of these wonderful students and teachers during the day, and then at night I get to go home and teach online for Liberty University, and it's the best of both worlds. I never thought I would be able to pull off working two jobs, but it's been a real blessing, and it's worked well. It's still working well. Praise the Lord.
So can you walk us through what all you teach at Liberty University?
Right now I teach a class called Administration and Supervision of Special Education. It's for educational administrators that are either working in gen ed administration or special ed administration. This is all PhD students. So they are working toward their PhD. Actually, let me back up. They're all working toward a doctorate, some PhD, some EDD, even some toward a capstone project. So sometimes I sit down on their dissertation committees when that's asked. There's been times when I supervise student teachers through that process. And it's been just a wonderful experience because I still get that experience of teaching at all levels.
So you teach special education here.
I do.
Can you work us through the process of what is that like and what that entails?
Right. So when I first came here, I was working with students with intellectual disabilities. Several of those students had autism spectrum disorders. Several with traumatic brain injury. I loved that position, but I was actually not certified for that position. So a couple of years into my stay here, they put me back to co-teaching in the gen ed classroom, which is kind of my first love. I really enjoy it because I get to work with so many different students and teachers. So now my normal day is first, second, and third block. I co-teach in gen ed classes. In first and second, I'm in English 10 with Miss Paxton Barrier. In third block, I'm in U.S. History with Miss Nicole Lyons, which is like history has always been my underlying love as far as subject area. I love history. So it really works out well. And during fourth period, I spend doing all of my paperwork basically, which that's the downside of special education, in my opinion, is that the paperwork is very cumbersome and time-consuming. And the only reason I don't like it is because it takes time away from the students. Yeah. But it has to be done, and that's okay. And then after fourth block, or toward the end of fourth block, I end up down here preparing for coaching, whatever season I'm in.
Yeah.
So you help out with football. Do you help out with wrestling?
I do not. So I was the head wrestling coach for 3 years.
Yeah, I thought so.
And when I first came here, I had no intention of coaching wrestling. I had done it in Pulaski, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But what happened was the wrestling coach resigned with about a month left before the season, and they asked me to help out, and I ended up doing that for 3 years. Until Coach Bowman came along and now Coach Long. And so although I'm not coaching, I still like to help out. I still love the sport. I love the program. I want to see it do well. So people a lot of times ask me or assume that I'm still a wrestling coach, but I'm actually not.
I saw that you were at one of the tournaments and you were posting updates to it on Facebook, so I wasn't sure if you were helping coach or...
Yeah, so... that's an experience. So my son graduated from here last December, and he started a Carroll County Cavs sports Facebook page.
Yeah.
And since then, he's graduated, and he's getting ready to transfer to Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech's his love. He does all tech sports now. So I kind of took over the page because people kept coming to me and saying, hey, when are you going to start posting again? And I was like, I didn't know that many people followed it. And it turns out that people just really loved it. So I've kind of picked up on that and tried to post whenever I can. So this past Saturday, I followed the team down to the regional wrestling tournament and gave updates as I could throughout the day. And that's something that I could see myself doing maybe a few years from now if retirement's ever in the picture, which it probably won't be, but I enjoy that.
Yeah. A lot of times if you can't go to events,
It's the only way.
know what happens.
Right. And that's been my goal with that is I have worker bees that send me all kinds of updates and friends in the community, and so I can just turn around and put that on the page even if I'm not there. So it's
I have a lot of friends on the wrestling team, and I was following the updates because I want to know how they did.
excellent. And that's my hope for that. I mean, however we can, I want these students and athletes here at the high school to know that they are appreciated, and that we see what they're doing. We see the extra effort that they're putting into their school days, and we love you. We want the best for you, and that's part of me just, I guess, trying to be Christ-like and show some kindness. So the more I can do that, the better off it is. But again, I couldn't do that if it wasn't for all my friends in the community that send me information. Yeah.
Now you're coaching Lady Cavs soccer.
Yes.
Were you ever a big soccer fan growing up, or is that something that you developed later?
No. So my first year of teaching, 1993, Arcadia High School out on the Eastern Shore, my best buddy, who was the football coach, said, hey, I'm also the boys soccer coach, and you're going to be my assistant. And I was like, no, I'm not. And he said, yes, you are. And I said, no, I'm not. So I was. I loved it. It was fun.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about soccer at that point in time. But oddly enough, years later, my son grew up playing soccer, and from a young age, he really liked it. Played a few years here, and it was kind of a natural avenue. So I helped out Forrest Johnson with the boys program for a couple of years. Took a year off, and then Coach Manley asked me to help with the girls last year. It was my first experience ever coaching a girls team, and I absolutely loved it. People had said to me, oh, there's so much drama with the girls team. I did not find it to be that way. I still don't. In fact, and maybe it's just my group of girls, but they tend to not complain as much as the boys teams that I have coached. Just being honest. I ask them what I need them to do. I explain what I need them to do. They do it. We move on. I've really enjoyed it, but again, I know I'm blessed with a great group of young ladies. So it's really been fun. I don't see myself doing that for forever. I know there's other people that would be better suited for the job, but for right now, I'm the best fit for it, and I'm just having fun with it. Yeah.
I know a lot of the girls really enjoy having you as a coach, and they think your practices are fun, and they're hopeful for the season. So it sounds like you're doing a great job.
Well, they're a good group. They really are. I enjoy it. So I hope I'm making a difference for them. Yeah.
About making differences. How has that changed since you've started teaching till now? Your approach to making that difference.
That's actually a really good question, because I have to answer that by being completely honest. When I started teaching in 1993, I was, although I would have said, yes, I'm a Christian, I was not following Christ to the best of my ability, and I was not in it for the right reasons. It was a paycheck. I wanted to win games as a coach. I wanted to further my career, but somewhere along the way, and again, I say it was somewhere around the age of 32, 33, God just laid it on my heart what an opportunity I have to make a difference in the lives of young people. And I started to take that seriously. And kind of from that moment on, it was just a major shift of, well, I'm still in the world of education, but now I'm in it for the right reasons. And it's not about me. It's not about my success. It's about the success of the young people that I'm engaged with day in and day out. And even as an administrator for 4 years, I started to sense that move. It was just a longing, a nagging at me. So again, I go back to when that former superintendent in Pulaski County said, "Hey, I need you to go back to the classroom." Did it feel like a punch in the gut? Kind of. But looking back, it was just God at work. It was a blessing in disguise, because I have just, I'm so thankful for the opportunities that I have now to work with young people and do it for the right reasons. And I mess up. I mess up daily. There's things that at the end of the day I say, I wish I would have handled that better. I wish I would have used a better expression, or explained myself a little bit better, had a little bit more patience with this student. But now it's a constant asking for forgiveness, repentance, moving on, and let's do this better the next day.
Yeah. You're also known at the high school as the advisor or organizer of FCA. Can you tell us a little bit more about what FCA does and your role in it?
Yeah. So FCA is Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and although I have a great respect for that organization, to me, the most important word in there is Christian. It's all about Christ. And so with that said, from the beginning, when they asked me to take over Fellowship of Christian Athletes, I made it clear that I will not put any kind of restriction on those students who are not athletes coming to our events. So Fellowship of Christian Athletes is a great organization because it allows us to meet under that umbrella of FCA, and it offers us a little bit of protection here at the school setting, even though I have to say that our administration here has been super supportive of FCA. But we have, from the beginning of me being the leader of the group, have always said, anybody's welcome. I don't even care if you're not a believer in Christ. You're welcome to come to our group, because we want to love you. We want to encourage you. We want to show you the hope that we have. And we want you to understand that we go through struggles daily, just like anybody else. But at the end of the day, we are relying on our faith in Jesus to get us through the day. And I have this super group of student leaders that they encourage me as much or more than I encourage them. And we have a great group of community leaders. Zeb Hicks, that's up at First Baptist. He comes every Wednesday to help us out. He has a meeting at his church. Zach Vaughn from Christ Chapel, and he's leader of the FCA. They all come and help me weekly to do these things. So it's been a real pleasure working with the group here. And again, that was one of those things that when I first came here to teach, I really didn't think about it, and it fell right into my lap. So to me, it was just another, I guess you would say it was just God saying, I know you may not have thought this 5 years ago, but this is the plan I have for you. This is where I want you to be.
So this time in people's lives, especially high school and later high school, is crucial to building that good foundation. Can you talk about the importance of that this time?
Yeah. Vital. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to stay engaged in the public high school, if not the public middle school, but the Lord has put me in the high school, and I think that's for a reason. Because I look back on my own youth and growing up in an area here in the Bible Belt, in a family that would have said, yeah, we're a Christian, but really no sign of it outside of that. I have this vision of so many students here in Carroll County who know who Jesus is. They know about Jesus, but they do not have a relationship with Jesus. And I don't want them to miss out on that. And I also don't want them to be misguided by what they see on social media, because there's a lot of groups out there that call themselves Christian and they're not. They're just, they might think so in their mind, but their agenda is far from what you read in the gospel. So there's clarification, there's beautification. To me, Christianity is so much more than just a mental descent to, hey, I'm a Christian. It's walking the walk. It's trying to live your life Christ-like and do something for people, loving God and loving others daily. So when it comes to FCA, that's what we try to do. We make it a point to go out into the school and look for those who might be sitting in the lunchroom by themselves, those who might be walking down the hallway every day with nobody to talk to, and reaching out to those students and saying, come meet with us. Or even if you don't want to come to our meetings, come meet with me, come hang out with me, come talk to me. And I've had some students over the years, not nearly as many as I want, but we're working on that, to come and say, can I just talk to you? I'm not a believer, and I don't want to be an FCA, but can I just talk to you? And so if I can use this platform, so I encourage students, yes. I mean, if you just want to come and sit down and talk and ask questions, I can guarantee you there's no question or doubt you have in your mind that's never crossed mine. And we can talk about it, and I can share what I've learned over the years, and hopefully help someone to overcome those situations.
Is there anything else that we've neglected to mention that you'd like to mention?
Well, we never really talked about this podcast, so I just want to say that I appreciate what you guys are doing, because I think this is awesome, and the entrepreneurial spirit that you guys have starting this from the ground up is amazing, and I would love to see more young people doing constructive things like this, because as I told you, I've listened to the past episodes, probably not, I know not all of them, but most of them, and they're just amazing. And my first thought was, I don't know why you would want to interview me after I've listened to the others, but I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you. It means a lot that you came on and talked to us.
As we're wrapping up, we always have a set of questions.
Say it's 1992 and it's on a Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. What would you be doing?
I love this line of questioning. So, I would be, we said 1992, I would probably be preparing for my student teaching the next day, which was at Fort Chiswell High School. Yeah.
What would that look like?
I was fortunate enough to have as my mentor teacher a fellow named Robbie Patton, who used to be the principal here at Carroll County High School. And Mr. Patton was a great teacher, but he was also, he was tough. He looked at me like a weekend and said, here's the chalk. We had chalkboards back then, no dry erase. He said, it's all yours. And I was like, okay. So I spent a lot of time planning in the evening. He wanted me to go through that process. He didn't give me a lot of his own material. He wanted to have me go through that process. So it was tough, but it prepared me so well. Yeah. So there's a lot of planning. I was still working part-time at a gas station. So actually at this point in time, I was taking cash from a customer for gas and then reading in between customers.
Pretty intense.
Wow, what time travel.
Yeah.
Who is your best friend?
My best friend is my wife, no doubt. Absolutely, without a doubt. She knows me better than I know myself. She can read my mind sometimes, and I say that in the genuine human sense. Obviously, in the spiritual sense, it would be Jesus, and that's who I want to model my life after. I'm not there. I want to be. And then I have a best buddy that lives up in Botetourt County named Jeff. We became good friends in college, and we still are to this day.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into our final questions, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
One of two places. I'll either still be here teaching, or I mentioned earlier, my daughter and her husband live in Pensacola, Florida, and they absolutely love it down there. And boy, if there's ever a mention of grandkids, then I'm probably a Floridian at that point. Even though summers would be tough, I don't handle cold weather very good anymore in my old age, so it would feel good in the wintertime to be down there. My wife and I have talked about that before, really wherever the Lord leads. We love it here. I love it here. I'll probably hang around as long as I can. At the same time, it would be hard to be away from my grandkids for an extended amount of time.
Is your daughter near the military base in Pensacola?
They are. They're neither of them are military. He's a banker. She works as a medical assistant for a dermatologist. Okay. They have great jobs. They literally picked Pensacola out of thin air about 3 years ago, and they moved down there after selling a house here, and they absolutely love it.
It's a great area.
It's a really good area. It is. So even though different, I'm a mountain guy, but grandkids, all bets are off. I'll be around my grandkids.
Absolutely.
What advice would you have to younger people who are considering a career in teaching or in special education?
Well, I've got to start with this. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all of the other things will follow. I wish I would have done that earlier in life. But I still believe that God had a plan and it's all worked out. Special education is about compassion, and it's about patience. If you don't have those two things worked out for yourself, then it's going to be tough to succeed in that field. Nothing's going to happen in a hurry. You have to be more interested in seeing students succeed than seeing yourself succeed. It's not very often that I get to work with students who are above average intellectually. Usually if I do, it's through coaching. At the same time, the reward is great. When you get to a point where you're working with a student that you know has struggled through school, they struggle with text, either writing or reading, and you're able to help them accomplish an academic goal, the reward is great. So it's a worthwhile field. It's a tough field. There's a shortage right now. If you're looking for an area that you will always have a job in, there it is. At the same time, I would advise you not to get into that field unless you're prepared mentally, if you have that compassion and that patience that it takes to work with students with disabilities.
Yes, sir. And my next question runs along that same vein. What advice do you have to young people just making their way in the world? They're just starting out.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all other things will follow. I'm not trying to sound like a broken record, and I don't mean to be cliche, but I'm telling you, young people, follow the Lord. And it's more than just reading your Bible daily. It's learning about Jesus and trying to imitate his life to the best of our ability. We're going to fall short, but just trying to follow the example that he provided for us in his full humanity, even though he was fully God, that will take you in the right direction. And there's going to be stumbling blocks along the way. There's going to be opportunities for you to walk away from that or do other things and just listen to someone who's learned through the years, from the years, stay on that straight and narrow path. And you're going to be so thankful when it gets toward the later years of your life.
Final question, it's a bit of a cliche, but we find it to be really indicative of a person's true character. And that is, what is the meaning of life to you?
Would you be upset if I said, seek ye first the kingdom
No,
of God
we're
and
not.
all other things?
No, sir. That's perfectly fine.
The meaning of life to me is making a difference on this earth before I leave it. And I do believe that the way to do that is to be as Christ-like as possible.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir, for coming on. It's been an honor to speak with you today.
Yeah, it's been an honor to be here. Thank you both for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. We've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.